First round of the Masters is in full swing. Got pushed back 30 minutes, but it's underway, and we've been talking about that for quite a bit. And let's talk about that a little bit more with Rex Hoggard from the Golf Channel. Good to give us some of his time here on Masters opening day. So it's certainly very valuable time. Rex, how are you? How are you enjoying the first day of the Masters? I know you've been there all week, though.
I have been here all week, but it's always exciting. It's one of those slow builds. I mean, I'm guessing it's like any other major sporting event, whether it be the NBA Finals or the Super Bowl, whatever the case may be. It seems like everything that comes before it takes forever, and then once you're actually in the middle of it, it goes so fast. So you try to enjoy it when you're here.
Well, I know that there's a couple of stories that really, get a lot of the talk here, and one of them is Phil Mickelson not being there, Tiger Woods being there and playing and looking really good. Rory McIlroy's got a chance to complete the Grand Slam. For me, as someone who's not a golf fan, and really, I'm watching because I want to see what Tiger can do. What are some of the other stories that would interest somebody like me as we go into this Masters?
Oh man, I think you touched on the three biggest ones. Certainly, Tiger being the biggest one coming into the week. It's all anyone can talk about, and for good reason. I mean, when you consider where he was, I don't know, just 14 months ago, 17 months ago. I mean, we all saw the pictures of the crash SUV in Los Angeles after the car accident. We also heard the reports and saw the medical results and knew that he was in bed. He was bedridden for 3 months after that. And just the idea that he showed up here and he's in the middle of his round and that he's out walking Augusta National. I don't know how far I was willing to take that. I really couldn't believe that he would be able to find a way to get contention. He is Tiger Woods, and he's done unbelievable things in his career, so I guess I shouldn't be too surprised if he does. But in my mind, just him being here is the biggest story of the week, and of course, Phil not being here would be secondary. But I think when you look down the list, in my mind, the biggest story is this is probably the most wide-open Masters I can think of in a long time, simply because what you've had on tour so far this year is sort of an eclectic mix, and you haven't had the normal winners. You haven't had the Rorys or the Jordan Spieths or the Justin Thomases or the John Rahms win this year on the PGA Tour. So it was really hard to sort of narrow down and drill down to, I don't know, that there's a true favorite this week.
Yeah, Rex, and I don't want to take anything away from Tiger's comeback. I mean, it is great. We're talking not that long ago that not only did we not think Tiger would ever play, that there's a chance he might lose a limb, then he wouldn't walk again. I mean, to what he's done is great. And there's a but coming. But that's all anybody of the general population of people not like you or people that cover this game for a living really want to talk about. And they talk about how great it is for the sport, how Tiger brings in so much eyeballs. Tiger does this, Tiger does that. Well, Tiger's getting old. Is Tiger being there this week and taking away attention from other great storylines and other great guys in this field starting to hurt golf? Because Tiger's not going to be there forever. Somebody else has to emerge as a must-watch guy, and I think that there doesn't have to be one. I think that there are multiple guys that can do it as a collective, that could make up and be as big as Tiger as, 4 or 5 of them. But is it getting to a point where, yes, Tiger's great for golf, he's great for eyeballs now, but is it hurting the future of the game as far as eyeballs and people wanting to stay with golf because there's somebody that they like?
I could have probably made that argument just a few years ago, to be honest with you, that when he was out of the event, it was kind of a vacuum, and he took attention away from everything else. And you can make a really good argument that that's to the detriment of the game. I don't know if this week is a really good example of that, just because of the unique circumstances, and everyone knows Tiger's story. You don't have to be a golf fan. You don't have to be a Tiger Woods fan. You don't even really have to be a sports fan to understand, oh my, here's someone who went through a horrific crash, probably wasn't going to walk again, as you pointed out. Doctors talked to him about amputating his leg, and now he's competing at the highest level. I think even if you ask the players this week, and there's been a little bit of this, they are all happy to see the spotlight, at least this 1 week, simply because of everything he's been through. But yeah, I think you make a very good point. I don't know that we're ever going to have another Tiger. I would imagine we do, at least not in my lifetime. That's a singular and generational talent. But it's going to be by committee. It's going to be 3 or 4 or 5 guys, and we've seen compelling young players step into that void, just not this week.
Mm-hmm. And one of those guys that I think can become a big star because he is still a really young guy. He's already won a few majors on tour. Colin Morikawa, what do you think of his chances this week in Augusta?
Under normal circumstances, I think his game, what he does best, fits this golf course perfectly. We talk about this being a putting contest all the time, but statistically, if you look at it, it's really a second shot golf course. It's an approach shot contest is really what this is about. And no one has better long iron play than Colin Morikawa right now. But that's when he's playing well. And I would argue if you look at what he has done so far this season, that he's not clicking the way he did last year and the way he has to win those two major championships and the way he did to get the world number one. That something has been quite off. Now, you can make the same argument for Jon Rahm, who was the world number one until 2 weeks ago, that he's played decently this year. He simply hasn't been sort of that brilliant player that we've become accustomed to waiting for. So, again, it's sort of the weird place that we're in golf right now, that you have all of these great players, but all of them seem to have, like, one thing off. You could give me 12 guys, and I could argue for or against all 12 of those guys with compelling arguments.
Yeah, you definitely can. Rex, is there a guy kind of out of nowhere, because especially in the online gaming world that most of us like to partake in, you know, you can get some pretty good odds when it comes to the Masters. Is there one of those kind of out of nowhere guys that you think can really make a splash this week?
I mean, we kind of had to do a dark horse, and I don't even know how much of a dark horse he is, although my guess is his number looks pretty good. It was Will Zalatoris. And he did finish second here last year, and I'll go back to what I just said about Colin Morikawa. This year on the PGA Tour, Will Zalatoris is first in strokes gained approach to the green. And that is a key on this particular golf course. And putting has kind of been his Achilles heel traditionally in his short career, but it seems to me he and his team have found a way to simplify that. And you saw the results of that 2 weeks ago at the World Golf Championship match play event, where he putted really well, at least when you want to look at the way he normally puts, so compared to other stats. So he would be the dark horse for me.
Yeah, and like you said, it's kind of hard to be a dark horse when you had a top two finish last season. But Rex and Phil kind of brought it up with the start, you know, some of the great storylines that outside of Tiger that are here. And with Phil and with everything that he has gone through, a lot of it self-inflicted, you know, kind of getting in bed with not the best of people that you really want to get in bed with. How long until you think people will not really forgive, but kind of just forget about the whole thing, and then they'll see Phil's name on a leaderboard on a Saturday, and they'll be like, "Go get him, Lefty"? I mean, how long until he kind of restores his image?
I think that's what it would take for him to restore his image, because we've seen it throughout the history of sports, where if you want to change the narrative, play well. I mean, you want to change what people are saying about you, go out and be a champion, and that's obviously going to change what they're saying. I don't know that we're ever going to get to that place going forward with Phil because of his age. He's 51 years old. It's not as though he's just starting his career. He's clearly on the final stretches of his career. And the other part of it is, even though whatever's happening right now in his life is self-inflicted, that he's taken himself out of the game. He decided not to come here this week as a past champion. He decided not to play the PGA Tour this season. Even when he does decide, whenever that is, PGA Tour made it clear that it's going to be a conversation that they're going to have with him. So I don't know, even when he decides to come back, if it will be in his power. Because I think there will be some ramifications for the things you just talked about, that he has sided with a competing tour. And that's something that the PGA Tour can't allow to happen, because you're only going to allow more players to get into that situation. So I don't know how he ever is able to change that narrative, I guess, to answer your question.
Yeah, I mean, he should have made the Saudi comments before winning the PGA Championship, because that would have been the moment, you know? Just kind of incredible to think of how far he's fallen in the public's eyes, really, in the last year. I want to ask about the number one player in the world, Scottie Scheffler. He's got good odds to win this. What sort of a chance do you give him?
He's actually my favorite this week, full disclosure, and I've said it a couple of times. And for all the reasons, I mean, I don't know. If you're going to go chalk, you don't have to make too many reasons why you like him. I just like the fact that he's the hottest player on the planet right now. I mean, you can break down his game, and I can give you a whole bunch of stats that I can add up and twist into a way that makes it sound like he's going to play this golf course well. But the fact is, he's won 3 of his last 5 starts. No one is playing better than he is right now. And even though he has limited experience here, this is just his 3rd start, he finished inside the top 20 in those other 2 starts. So clearly there's something about this golf course that he understands. And I think I like the rotation he's in as well. I like the threesome he's in. I like the fact he's going sort of semi-late. I mean, semi-early, semi-late. You can get into a good routine.
What's different about the course this year? What changes did Augusta National make?
I mean, it's funny. They do changes every year, and some of them they talk about it, and some of them they don't, and they do it so subtly, and they've gotten so good at it over the years. A lot of times you won't even notice for a few years down the road, and you realize, oh, that tree didn't used to be there. This year, it's funny. They talked about they did announce some changes, and probably the 11th hole is the biggest change, and it's talking with players. It's a dramatic change. The Tiger Woods one so far is saying it's a completely different hole, and what they've essentially done is make the tee shot easier and the second shot harder, which is sort of the design philosophy of this golf course. But it will require something vastly different from players, and I can see it having a huge impact and how Sunday unfolds, because that's always a pivotal hole, and now you put it in a position where it's even more harder than it was before, and players are going to have to take chances there.
Right, because another thing that may have changed, I haven't had time to double check and fact check, but and what I saw on Twitter earlier, is it correct that I now have to pay $3 for a barbecue sandwich instead of $2.50? Have the prices, has inflation finally hit Augusta?
I don't know if it's inflation, because the chairman was asked about this yesterday in his interview, his press conference, and it was referred to us as supply chain issues, which I guess we're all dealing with on some level, and he did not give a number. I mean, he didn't say, okay, we've increased prices 10% across the board, or whatever the case it may be. It was still very inexpensive. I went out and had lunch on the golf course today, and I think I spent $10 and had all the food I could possibly eat. But yes, the bigger issue is probably the most famous thing and the favorite thing on the menu, which is sort of this peach ice cream sandwich, kind of mushed in between two cookies. They couldn't even get them this year. Oh. That, to me, is heartbreaking.
Oh, that is heartbreaking. I know that was something that I would have to have, if it was especially my first time at Augusta National. Rex, before we let you go, trying to figure out the best way to phrase this. You, like myself, like pain because we're both lifelong Orioles fans. How are the O's going to do this year? Is there going to be any joy and happiness through the next 6 months?
I have eternal happiness whenever it's spring training. I mean, before we break camp, I always find myself very optimistic. It's when after we break camp that things seem to go downhill. I will say this. So Scotty Scheffler's daddy actually grew up in New Jersey, and he's a Yankees fan, and he and I were walking a few weeks ago at the match play, and we were talking about this. And I will say this, that it's gotten to the point that other people appreciate our pain, because I have a Yankee fan now that literally puts his arm around my shoulder every time he sees me, just because he knows. So I don't know if that's good or if I should be ashamed a little bit. But
almost feels like a pat on the head, like, oh, you poor fella type of thing.
Yeah, too bad. I've decided to suffer enough that he feels like I need his pity or something. I don't need anyone's pity. We're O's fans.
Yeah. We're built hard to the core.
Rex, Pirates fan over here. Not only do I feel your pain, but I drown in it. Okay, so we can start a little club for fans of teams that have virtually no chance of not losing 100 games this year, and you can be the chairman. And I think we can have a lot of fun just making fun of our favorite teams.
I should have you guys go on our podcast, and we can just do comparison shopping of the worst teams to be fans of. I think we can go deep on that one.
Right. This is a radio show that 2 years ago did a whole segment for an entire baseball season called How Bad Are the Pirates Today? Because they give you just the right amount of material for it. Rex, appreciate you, man.
Is your number one source for all your betting needs, sports info, and odds. Find all the latest sports developments, including this week's odds for the Masters Championship and the start of Major League Baseball season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino and poker games. It's super easy to get started, so join today. Learn why everyone is saying BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on popular sports and games. BetOnline, where the game starts.